So LSU is back on the schedule, I see, for a week 4 date after
Terrible
some games
idea.
that you should win, with Central Michigan mixed in there as well. What was that comment, John?
That's a terrible idea. I'm not. I'll probably be down in Baton Rouge because I want to go to the game, but scheduling like that is not the way to get back to a bowl game.
We've seen NC State do it in recent years. They're a little bit better right now, but when they first came back to postseason play under Dave Doran, they had the formula. You play 4 cream puffs, you go 2-6 in the conference, you're 6-6, bam, you get a bowl game. We've seen a number of teams do that, not just in the ACC, but around the country. That's where Wake Forest landed at a 6-6 season after finishing undefeated out of conference. So you would like to take all the difficult games off the map, or how would you like to play the scheduling game?
Well, I think for me, and anyone who reads News Magician knows this is kind of a pet peeve for a very long time of mine. The ACC demands that you play a Power 5 conference opponent every year. Every 3 or 4 years, that Notre Dame for us anyway, based on that scheduling arrangement. But for all the other P5 teams, I mean, you can play a team like Rutgers, you can play a team like Maryland, you can play a Kansas, like an Oregon State. Like you can shop for those bottom of the barrel teams, and Purdue a little bit more close than some of those other ones, just to give yourself a better shot. And instead, you're looking at home and homes with LSU. We don't recruit down in Louisiana. We're not going to beat a large land grant school in the SEC. It's not going to happen. We're facing Wisconsin in 2020 and 2021. Like, we're not winning those games either. I mean, maybe Babers gets us to a point where we're a perennial kind of 7-8 win team, maybe 9 in a good year. That Wisconsin game is still tough. I think you mentioned NC State. I think BC's done it, Duke's done it, Rutgers has done it, Maryland's done it. A lot of teams that when you mention Syracuse, there's that whole list of programs are all right in the same spot. They've all gotten the memo that, schedule yourself in a way that allows you to get to a bowl game, especially in an increasingly tough ACC. And we just haven't necessarily done it yet. I mean, we've scheduled the likes of Washington, USC, a lot of other teams, Penn State, teams that we didn't really have a shot to beat them going in, and we proceeded to lose on national television, which I don't really think did us many favors.
So there's probably 1 or 2 bottom feeders in all the conferences that you just named. So the scheduling is a little bit more difficult, obviously, when those games get snatched up and everybody's playing 3 to 4 non-conference games, and most likely you're only picking 1 Power 5, maybe 2 for some teams. Some teams go out and select 2 Power 5 games. So it's difficult in terms of snatching up those games. But yeah, I think that's who you'd like to target. I think you name the schools that not only are winnable games that would look decent on the resume at the same time in some fashion, but also from a recruiting standpoint, as you allude to. I would think that you could dip into Maryland, you could go into New Jersey, and that's a winnable game. Plus, it's a recruiting base to a certain extent for Syracuse, and then going to the Big Ten and not necessarily matching up against Wisconsin, but against whether it's Northwestern or Minnesota or somebody like that. If you're looking at the Big Ten, would be the way to go.
In an ideal world, that's what we're doing. I know we're facing Maryland in 2019. That's the end of a 3-game series that we had set up with them after they left the ACC. But yeah, in general, this has been a long-standing issue for Syracuse, locking up smarter opponents when we're looking at power conference teams, and also just locking up opponents in general. I know. I think our only future schedule done right now is 2017. And we have a lot of empty spaces from 2018 to 2024. And you look around the country, and there's a lot of teams scheduled through 2024, and some even further. Wake, I think, is completely locked up through like 2024. So is Virginia Tech. So Syracuse needs to kind of move, because eventually you get kind of put in a corner where you're either overpaying schools for wins, or you're overpaying for schools that could potentially beat you at home.
Yeah, and so then the only one that you mentioned that is a bit out of your range but still makes sense geographically and in regards to tradition and prestige and everything else in order would be Penn State. We know you've got a new athletic director who's been in the door for about 6 months, so obviously he's got his work cut out for him in regards to shaping a schedule that looks impressive but is still winnable to get to postseason play.